beautiful piece of artwork that you're looking at is called Intersculpt. And I'm Nick Burkey, and this is Proform, and we've got a professional with us today that created this piece. And he's here today to explain what this is all about. I'm talking about Richard A. Murray. Richard, welcome to Proform.
Thanks, Nick.
Richard, Intersculpt, we caught up with you last year at a couple of places, over at UltraCon, at a demonstration you had there, and then also at the Saturn Awards, that you were getting an award at that time. But could you tell us a little bit about why you've called all this Comets of Chondrodon? Why we have these posters here, why we're talking about Chondrodon?
Chondrodon is a galaxy that I've created. See, I didn't know what I had when I first started out. I started making these fancy cities, and it was just one place at a time, and I was making them real small, and then I started getting bigger and bigger, and it just like throwing away a neighborhood. I'd go to an art show, I'd take a whole colony with me, you know, and set it up for everybody to look at. And they're just going out aimlessly, so I had to kind of draw a perimeter around it. And kind of like Creator does to this universe, I did one of my own. So in my universe, I have 9 galaxies, because I'm going to be doing this for a long time.
Now, the comets that you're talking about, Chondrodon, this is something that you've named, but from talking to you before last year and now, because your work is Richard's work is kind of the talk of the town right now. There's a lot of people that are interested in his work, in not only in using him for rock videos and movies and a lot of other things, but we had Richard primarily because we want to know what the comets are. I mean, why you constructed this? This looks like a city.
It's what it is. It's a self-contained city that'll hold about 3,000 people. Each one of them are self-contained, otherwise they have nothing to get into the inside. They're all inside themselves, and it's a fantasy city. It's an imaginary, it's a state of being, basically, is what it is. It's a state of consciousness that you feel yourself that is an experience. You know, we all go through life searching for experience. And one of the experiences that you get when you look at one of the pieces of artwork is the simple fact that you yourself have just met your creative impulses one-on-one. Otherwise, now you have to imagine the experience of being this big. Now you have to imagine in a world where there are no cars. You have to imagine what a world would be like if it looked like that, you feeling like this. Now you've just interlocked in your mind, and basically with your soul, the true form and the true sense and the true sensation of creativity. The imagination meeting with a state of consciousness in a place, an origin, a point of origin. It gives a realm to the mind that just excites the human being.
Well, is Chondrodon, is it in our universe, or is it some other universe? I mean, do we relate to it in terms of being on Earth? Would we walk on it the same way? Would gravity be the same as Earth's, or is it someplace, you know, out of Richard Murray's head that
It has a trilogy. I'm not done writing it yet. Like I said, I still didn't know what I had. And I just did this because it was fun. And I got a great sensation out of it. And it drives you crazy. It's not an easy thing to do. And it kind of makes you understand what artists are like and what it's like living the life of an artist. Because when you use that much creative imagination, sometimes it'll score you out. It puts you kind of in an out-of-balance state with, you get eccentric, you do things you want to do, you don't conform, you live your life. It leaves you, in a sense, sometimes where it pulls on you because you've had so much excitement, and now you've got to balance the sine wave, so to speak, and that's why artists have a tendency of being erratic.
Well, you have this artwork. This is a piece of acrylic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the acrylic was done from reverse and underneath.
Right. The image inside has been removed.
Now, Richard,
There's no molds.
when you were constructing this, did you have a map in your mind of a, in other words, did you see a particular city in your mind, or did you just start in an area and go, like if you're mopping your floor from one corner to the next?
Yeah. It's basically a floor mop operation.
Definitely a floor mop operation.
Yeah, it's here and now, and it's exercising here and now, and it's exercising patience. It's just something that I do to exercise patience, because you have to sit still for many, many long hours. For instance, this piece, I had to sit still 450 hours and totally concentrate while sitting still on creating this space. Most people can't sit still for 2 minutes. I even find myself hard sometimes sitting still, concentrating an effort at one thing. And this is basically one of the side byproducts of getting involved in something like this at the time. That's what you do with it. You learn from it.
Well, most artists, and you are artists in this, that's for sure. Most of them will work on 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 different pieces. Did you work on different pieces at once, or?
Well, now you caught me. That's how I put up with sitting still. I have several things I go sit still at.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I can see that based from from the work involved into it. But now last year when we caught up with you and you were going to receive an award.
The Saturn Award.
Now the Saturn Award is given out by the Motion Picture Science Fiction.
Science Fiction and Horror Films Academy.
And they're given out each year, and the nominations were given out at the Brown Derby in Hollywood. And we went there because Richard was going to be there to receive a special award for his artwork. So
fun day.
We're going to show that video of us being in at the Brown Derby last year while Richard got his award, and then we'll come back to the interview here.
At the award ceremony on June 30th, we'll be presenting several special awards. But today we would like to make an extra special award. I hope that you have noticed the beautiful sculpture done around the room. They are called intersculpture. And the creative genius who has created this and brought this new art form is here today, and we would like to honor him, and I'm pleased to make this presentation to Richard A. Murray.
Thank you very much. This is an art form that's been hard in getting it exposed to the public. And I have a lot of people to thank, and I want to thank everybody that helped get it to where it is today, and especially those that refused to help it, because they taught me a lot in getting to a point where I have the responsibility of it. And I stand here very proud in front of all of you. Thank you.
That's sculpture there. That's amazing. The same man, and anybody that wants one, we'll give them to everybody on the
So as you can see, Richard received his award for, was honored that, in fact, the award ceremony seemed like honoring just Richard, because he's the only one that got the award that day. But Richard, I know you felt good, and everybody could see from the video that you felt good from that award.
Mm-hmm.
Now this year, as we were talking about when we talked last year, you were starting out your tour, and you were going to tour the country with your artwork. Now, from all the people who were there from the motion picture industry, they were there considering your work for some of the movies.
Right.
So let's kind of go to another section of what your work is being used for, and that's recently I understand that you're involved with the rock video
Right.
of this work. Well, what's involved with using your work for a rock video? How do they use that?
Well, they needed an odd city for something to take place in. This was a rock jazz video. May I mention the group?
Sure.
It was Jeff Lorber Fusion Band. And the hit song was In the Heat of the Night. And a lot of it goes on inside the city because the city is like a map. It's like it's like carrying a whole studio right here into it's not a studio as big as this, but into like a garage or something, to where you can laughing. To where this piece would actually be a huge set, because the scale of the way everything is set up and the outlay of the city is you can have actual places where things can go on. And then you can use chroma key, which they use for placing the people in the city.
Ah.
See, because they run around. You can see where they run around. There's plenty of room. Everything has a purpose in these comets. The reason this is called a comet, by the way, is because this is one large city that's all by itself. It stands away from another large city all by itself. And each one of these would be like comets that are floating in space. You see, until these pieces take on gravity, so to speak, of peoples, then they're not really going to, they're not going to be complete. You see, the way to complete this is now to populate it. The vision of it all was to share a space with people. And the only way I can really do it is through photography. So I try to share this space with other people, and when they get one of the limited editions of a particular area, then they become a resident, basically, of this individual piece. And then there's a line of communication between myself and them as to what Conjure is to me. And then they can communicate what Conjure is to them. And this is still a part of the artwork that's undeveloped. It has to go somewhere in the industry, so to speak, before it can really move out. It's like the telephone. No one heard about the telephone until they got one so they could get a phone call.
Right. Now, some of your pieces, too, I've seen when we were over at Balcar Studios, they were, in fact, that's when you were first getting involved with that crew for your rock video, I
Yes.
remember. We were over at that. But there's one piece that's was out in the lobby area, or out in the showroom area, that you mentioned was in the Smithsonian, and it was enormous. Now,
Yeah, it was a table.
right, a tabletop's like 4 or 5 feet long, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have all of your comets and all of your artwork, which I've run into a few people that have had pieces of it in the last couple of years, where you have, when you're mentioning your limited edition or section of the comet, that you take out and construct a section of that.
That's one all in itself.
Right. Now,
They're all individual.
you keep a run of more or less almost like a star map of all of these pieces.
Exactly.
I-
See,
I
the reason these were called comets was because these were going to go on an orbital tour around the United States. And as they went around the United States, wherever people were that got involved in the trilogy of Conjure and got involved into what Conjure means to them and relating it back and forth to me and populate the pieces themselves, that's when they start taking on gravity, and then therefore the pieces would end up somewhere, some museum or something. We weren't quite clear on where they were going to end up. We had a lot of people wanting to buy them and then turn around and rent them to the industry. So so many things happened. It was still learning what it means.
Well, the pieces that we talked about, I know I read some of the literature that you put out with at the shows with your artwork, and some of the pieces were ranged in as far as your pricing goes, it's more on the basis of how you use the piece.
Yeah.
And then you determine I would almost call it an open-end lease, more or less, on all of these pieces that you have out.
Precisely.
And it's all kind of tied in
See, on a
together.
piece this big, to give you an example of how the pieces, I've had to sell them. Normally I just used to keep them, but I couldn't eat them.
Right, exactly.
I wouldn't digest. I had to start selling them, so I had to start finding a price range, how to deal with it. And I went up, and I went down, and then I went up, and then I went this way, and then I went this way, until finally I started finding some relativity and started getting a track record going of certain things, certain sales for certain sizes. And the people basically determined what the price was going to be. On a piece like this, you may find this would be an investment into an art project, because this is an open market, not marketing, this is an open market tool that has several avenues in order to deal with the financial income back into the creativity itself. I had to look at it as a business as well, because I'm the only one who could deal with it. No one knew what it was.
I mentioned before in the beginning of the show that it's kind of the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And I mean that because there's, in dealing with a lot of people in the industry, between last year and the beginning of this year, we've come across a lot of people that are using, if they're not using Richard's work, they're planning on using his work because of the...
getting booked up, as they say.
Yes, well, and it's
Before it
kind
ever
of,
gets-
your work, the beautiful thing, when you were developing this, did you realize at that time just how much, how photogenic the work's going to be and how much was going to be involved?
Good question, because I'll tell you something. I have a thing that I go through in my spiritual training, and it basically told me to hide my big pieces. Just to hide them. Don't show them to anybody. And I didn't listen to that one time, and I pulled them out, and Disney World in Florida saw them. And they made it rough for me to try to keep it a secret.
Sound like Starsky and Hutch and
No, it's not a
foreign
big drama.
intrigue and all this.
Yeah.
It's just that, like anything else in the world, when you bring out something that's good and people are interested in, naturally they're going to want to get as much of it as they can. They want to be involved
Yeah.
with it. Now,
I'm just trying to keep it off the gear shift knobs and off the hoods of Japanese
well,
cars.
I can see that the dilemma that you have with having this artwork and wanting it to go especially in a particular direction.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I see it and the way I understand it, the comets that this piece that we're looking at and all the other pieces that we have seen, they belong to Richard Murray, but you also put them out there for everybody.
Yeah.
You want them to experience this. So
Right.
therefore, if I want to experience this, maybe I'd like to have a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you going to sell your pieces at all? Or
Oh, yes.
I know you said you sold them
Oh,
to
yes.
make a living, but
Oh, yes.
or is it strictly just using them on a lease basis?
Oh, no. I hold all my large pieces and I use them for custom orders because I have a very creative agreement, contractual arrangement with the purchaser of large pieces. Because, in order to sell a piece like this, 90% of the people that I deal with it would want it made into a special application. A coffee table, a special piece of something, whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole arrangement that I have with them is that it is made available to be rented because we share that. Otherwise, we get paid back.
Are you going to continue on with additional pieces in the comets? Or?
Well, yes. I have 2 more like this, and I have a table, another table, and I've just received 4 domes that are the 2 Nemo submarines with 18 inch. Nemo submarine is a big 6-foot sphere, okay, with 18-inch portholes It's a two-man submarine. It's a big glass ball, acrylic ball. And I've just had two of them cut to where I have tops and bottoms of planets. So I'm going to start making some planets now, you see, and maybe have some sound attached to it. We've done a lot of work, new laser research, just from this artwork alone. For instance, in the field of holography. In the field of holography, this has brought on a whole new image because they had to perfect new things and new types of optics in order to pick up this image. They had other things they had to deal with that they've never dealt with before. It really enhanced the research. I had to start a whole to go into the research of the laser end of it. Photography with 3D was man in 3D, Dan Sims, and took one of my pieces and set it up, and it took 4 days to shoot. But we came up with a whole new 3D, full color. Wasn't possible before because that detail that they could above, and that's when it went bing. People in the industry, the use. There's such a great. It's like stacking up a whole studio. Take out the one you want. It's like playing a record. You want this village, you want this town, here it is. You can just put it on a table, spin it in front of a camera, and it's all editing after that.
Well, we've, like I mentioned, talked to a lot of people, and of course, if you looking at the artwork right now, you see that not only has it taken many hours for Richard to construct this, but it's also come out. He has let it lay it to be actually a place. In the beginning of the show, we were sitting here just before Richard was a trance, more or less. I was watching him meditate, and he mentioned that he had to get to before he even began to where he was when he was this. I mentioned that you were, as far as belief, is that coming?
Oh, try not to trance state. I find out of a state of relaxation going into the everyday life. Half hour to 45, calm down enough. The planning and organizing of a city. So what I'm doing, I'm just city right in front of myself, feeling it happen, being. See. This big, actually, but when you're this and that, one thing I know of, nothing. It's not that. Hooked on it. Unfortunately, guys. Time. Take. This is.
Well, that's what you're talking about is exactly what an artist, true artist, way.
Mm.
The same force side of what they're trying to create. would be disturbed and have to saying.
Mm-hmm.
Why I to be honest naturally from this, but the fact that Richard is one of the few people that are in touch with a lot of other feelings besides what's going on in the world today. And excuse me, these outside feelings are what help you create.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I go into a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different things. We all have our thing in life, you know, that one thing that makes us, us, you know, what we know, how we act, what we do, who we attract to us. It's all us. That's what makes us up as individuals. And I definitely have my own little world that I play with. It's hard to relate it. This is one of the only ways.
What are you hoping for, I think, to get into your head for a second here, what are you hoping to accomplish more than anything, say, this particular year with your artwork? What would be one of the your goals for this year with your artwork?
To see it get to a matured state, to a matured place. It's still an immature property, basically, in the world of the arts, although it's up there. It's made it in places where none of them go. And it's represented, you know, it's played the role of art, but it's still in an immaturity because it hasn't been exposed in the right place, you know what I mean? Where everything has its own little place, its own little time. This is like at the doorway. It's like just outside the door of the right place and the right time. And I feel that in '84, for myself, that it's going to take on that place. See, I want to be able to show this and show this work to the public in wherever I can, but to see that it has the viewing that it needs in order to get some type of exposure. The experience alone brings back the people. That's why when I do shows at science fiction conventions, as crazy as those people look, smell, and dress up like, I've had people dragged away from my table, old ladies, man, that just stand there and bawl their eyes out when they're looking, and you've seen the table, when they're looking across the central sun of Condradon, and they just experience something that they've been around for so many years and they've never experienced. And that's how I met all over my artwork. Brought their husbands.
Artwork. And Richard has been our guest today. We've had a wonderful experience with you, Richard. You're a professional. We thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, I'll bring some more back sometime soon.
Thank you. We'll see you next time on Pro Forum.